and welcome to Idaho Bigfoot. I'm your host, Shep, and today I am joined by my lovely assistant, Ushi. Can you look at the camera? Yeah? Yeah, okay. She always gets awkward on camera. She's adorable. And she's wearing this brace to help her with her shoulders, by the way, so we're not torturing her. She needs this. So anyway, today I wanted to do a short discussion video, and I'm hoping to do more of these down the road so I can provide you guys with content on a more regular basis. But what we're talking about specifically today are portals. And I've seen these pop up a lot, especially when you're watching TV shows like Expedition Bigfoot, which has been more or less proven to be a fake show. You know, it's not a show that I'd go to for accurate information, unfortunately. I used to love it. But there's been little bits and pieces of info that have been coming out that just make me think that they're really faking a lot of it, if not all of it, but I can't say that for sure. And there are people who dedicate a lot more time to talking about some of these shows, and I may do that down the road too. I mean, I love doing investigative stuff, but in the meantime, when you're watching shows like that, they constantly bring up portals. I know Ronnie LeBlanc, who seems like a nice enough fellow, but he's definitely out there with some of his theories. He loves talking about portals. You meet a lot of people in the Bigfoot field that go into what would be described as woo-woo. I don't like using it as a derogatory term, but just as kind of a way of referring to it in a way that people can understand. But woo-woo, basically, woo, you know, kind of paranormal type stuff. People in that field, that subcategory of paranormal, well, not paranormal, that is woo-woo, but I mean of Bigfoot, cryptozoology type research, love to talk about portals. Portals constantly come up. When you're watching Missing 411, you constantly hear about portals. So, you know, really I want to see, are there any natural phenomenons that can explain what people are seeing? Can portals, in the sense that people always refer to them as like a way to go from point A to point B, can they actually exist? Is there any way we can make sense of that? And then the last one is the most troublesome to kind of answer, but I think it's very important. Can Bigfoot actually find these things and traverse through them? Now, obviously, there's going to be some back and forth, and there's going to be a lot of interpretation that goes on here, but I did do some research. So let's start off with that first one, though. Are there any natural phenomenons that can help explain what people are reporting? And yes, there are. The example that I found that made me want to make this video, because I came across it on Instagram, believe it or not, is the sun candle. Now, this here is the sun candle.
It was captured on camera in Austria by skier Alenka Lanci, and hopefully I am pronouncing that person's name correctly. It's usually known by the scientific name lower tangent arc, and when you Google that, you do see some of these images on screen. All credit goes to their respective owners.
Now, this phenomenon occurs when sunlight interacts with small flat ice crystals found in the atmosphere, usually within cirrus clouds or ice fog. These ice crystals act like mirrors, reflecting sunlight and giving a vertical beam of light resembling a candle flame. I mean, that absolutely looks like a portal. And, you know, the possibility of a Bigfoot walking up to one, through one to kind of see what it's looking at, I mean, could be, and I mean, the chances would be so incredibly small, but if someone actually being there to witness that, I mean, it could happen. But, you know, doubtless, I could see people just stumbling across the phenomenon itself, no Bigfoot, and that would be more likely. Supposedly, it's a very rare phenomenon, but I think it actually occurs much more often. And when you think about it, I mean, I live in an area where we do get weather like that. Actually, it's very cold out right now, and about a month ago we had that kind of thick icy fog. I mean, it was really weird, and we've been getting that off and on actually. But basically, I mean, we didn't see any of that phenomenon, but if the conditions were just right, we could have. And I mean, where you see most of these portal sightings are in areas where you do get very cold weather, and I want people to think about that for a second. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't remember hearing about a lot of portal sightings in areas of the Southwest, the Southeast, or just the South in general. You know, looking at places like Alabama, right? Well, I don't remember hearing a lot of portal encounters or sightings in that area, but I do hear a lot of portal sightings in places like New York, Upper New York, or upstate New York, Maine, Michigan, Ohio, Washington, places like that. So, you do find some in like Utah, but Utah is a little different than I think a lot of people realize. We tend to think of it like Arizona, but they do have forests there. It does get rather cold, being a desert. So, there are times where I think you could see this phenomenon as well, but more than likely, you're looking at some of the more north states. But even then, I mean, how many times do you hear of portal encounters and sightings in the southwestern, southeastern, south central part of the United States? I mean, I don't really hear of a lot of that. So just basically, if you have seen anything like that in those areas, let me know. If you have heard of any encounters or sightings in those areas, let me know. But I have a very real feeling that most of the sightings occur in places where this phenomenon could occur. And because of that, I believe that it is possible that it does explain some of the encounters. Now, obviously, in summertime, it doesn't, right? And weather and temperatures where you don't have, the snow and the ice crystals, I mean, yeah, you're not going to see that phenomenon. So it doesn't explain everything perfectly, but I do believe in wintertime it could explain some of them. And I do think that they happen more often, or it occurs more often than people realize. They just haven't caught it on camera or knew what they were dealing with. So, with that out of the way, actually, excuse me, let me back up a second. There's one other phenomenon I want to talk about. Now, it's not actually the sun candle, but it's a related phenomenon, and that would be light pillars. The website glimpseofinfinity.com used these photographs that they took, and it had the following information included with it. According to the Weather Network meteorologist Aaron Wexstern, light pillars are an atmospheric phenomena created when tiny ice crystals reflect either natural, sun or moon, or artificial light such as street lights. This type of ice crystal is flat and hexagonal in shape, and when they are suspended in the air, together they act like a gigantic mirror, reflecting the light source upwards or downwards. So this isn't necessarily a portal, but it just shows that there are times when people have seen similar phenomena that can kind of lead to a sun candle, or our sister phenomena to the sun candle. And, it does happen regularly enough for it to be noted and recorded. So it's just possible that the sun candles happen in spots where there aren't as many cameras. Just like Bigfoot sightings, I mean, just because we don't have 100,000 videos doesn't mean that people aren't actually seeing something. It just means that they didn't have a camera on them, or they didn't think to record it when they saw it. Now, Quora, and I understand that some of these sources may be a little more iffy, but it does seem like they are true, and this is just a quick video. So if you want to do more deep diving into this topic, or if you're someone that can actually speak on this topic because you're a physicist, or you're someone that has the kind of education to be able to speak on this topic, please let me know. And I do want to actually do interviews for my book down the road here. I'm hoping to get it published within the next couple of years, but I need to still work on it. But that is something I will try and work towards doing. But in the meantime, these sources will have to do. Quora, when someone asked about the possibility of portals being real, a person by the name of Wendy James replied with this answer. The lady said, the portal concept essentially revolves around wormhole tunnels through space-time that could, in theory, connect two distant points in the universe. In fact, Einstein's theory of relativity, allows for the possibility of wormholes, but there is a catch. They are extremely unstable. To keep them open, you would need exotic matter with negative energy, something scientists are still trying to understand. Now, there is also the quantum entanglement principles that exist out there, and you can learn up on that more if you'd like. But, it is possible to teleport matter, and I believe they just did an experiment up in outer space where they teleported basically an atom. It was something very, very small. From one point to another, it was a fairly short distance, and that's incredible. But, it's mostly unproven, especially in regards to anything of any real size, like this coffee table here. You can't see it, but we have a coffee table right in front of us, or this couch, or let alone a living being like me or my dog here. So, you're looking at many trillions of times more complicated work that would have to be done in regards to a living being, if not, sextillions. more pieces of information that would need to be kept track of and put in exactly the right spot. So when you think of Star Trek, I mean, think of those teleporters. Even in Star Trek, they have problems sometimes, but that is the level of technology that we'd need to have, and we just don't have that. But quantum entanglement is very interesting, and it does appear like it could eventually start making its way in that direction, but I don't expect it to really make any big leaps and bounds for some time. But that's just me. But anyway, it is still mostly unproven in regards to anything really serious. Now, this next possibility is pretty interesting. An extra-dimensional entity, something like a demon or a demonic entity in some way, shape, or form, whatever you want to call it, could possibly pull this off because it's able to access a dimension higher than our own, or possibly dimensions higher than our own. But, much like Carl Sagan's series, I'm blanking out on the name. Oh, Cosmos, that's it. Carl Sagan's series, Cosmos, where he discussed how a fourth dimensional being could interact with us, a third dimensional being, and use the analogy of a third dimensional being interacting with a two-dimensional being, or second dimensional being. And I thought that was incredibly fascinating. So I recommend you watch that. I'll leave a link down below and at the end of this video. But basically, being an extra dimensional entity, it could interact with lower dimensions, just like we can interact with lower dimensions, but we cannot interact with something of a higher dimension, just like how something of the second dimension, assuming that that could ever even exist, would not be able to interact with us. So it's very interesting, especially when you take into account the hypotheses of Lisa Randall. She's a theorist at Harvard University. She believes an extra dimension may exist close to our familiar reality, hidden except for a bizarre sapping of the strength of gravity as we see it. Now this quote here, I forgot to take a note of where it came from exactly, but I'll put the name on the screen. And she's in a Q&A with a reporter. So I'm going to just start reading her answer, and you'll see what I mean here. So she said this: there could be more to the universe than the three dimensions we are familiar with. They're hidden from us in some way, perhaps because they're tiny or warped. But even if they are invisible, they could affect what we actually observe in the universe. There are lots of things we cannot see with the naked eye that turn out to be based in reality. Extra dimensions could be relevant to one of the questions we're trying to answer at the LHC: how particles get their mass, and why they have the masses that they do, which are far smaller than physicists would expect them to be. So our idea is that there's an extra dimension that's so warped the masses would be big in one place and small in another. Or in other words, gravity could be weaker in one place and stronger in another. If so, it could be a natural explanation both for why particles' masses are what they are, and why gravity is so much weaker than the other elementary forces we observe. And then the lady who was interviewing her asked this question. She said, this extra dimension could be separated from ours by a million trillion trillionth of a centimeter. Is this a parallel yet inaccessible universe? And Miss Randall said this: it interacts with our dimensions only via gravity, and gravity is extremely weak. An elementary particle at ordinary energies exerts exerts negligible gravitational force. But at the LHC, if this idea is right, we would see evidence of this extra dimension. Particles could carry momentum into the extra dimension, and that could actually be observable. And in a web forum, worldbuilding.stackexchange, they asked this question: are portals possible? And it actually was asking this question, I believe, in reference to this video game called Portals. But besides the discussion of the game and just the mechanics of the game, there was actually a real discussion about whether or not such a thing could actually exist in real life. And one person, Court Ammon, said this: the edges of the portals will be tricky. As Peter Massar put it, we like space-time to be continuous. These sharp edges will end up being mighty torrents of quantum rage, not infinitely thin, but you'd have to spend a lot of work stabilizing them because, well, you cut a hole in the universe, pulled itself through itself, and glued it all together. What do you think would happen? Fortunately, the portal graphics clearly show this chaotic, dangerous region around the edges. For your safety and the safety of others, please do not lick the edges of the portal. You said the final issue would be the nastiest: the energy of creating a portal. When you drag space-time around, the conservation of energy is still in effect. If you change the direction of the gravity field, you will need to effectively recalculate the potential energy of every object in the universe. If you raise the universe, you'll have to put energy into it as you make the portal to offset this potential energy. If you lower the universe, it will emit energy, which will have to be reclaimed or lost as gamma radiation. Okay guys, so I'm re-recording this portion of the video because the audio was all crackly. Unfortunately, the microphone, this one right here, was underneath this instead of over top of it like it is now, and it came loose. The clip didn't hold and the microphone fell off of me, and so it was kind of held in place, but it got all crackly sounding because of the fabric rubbing up against the microphone, and I just don't like that. So I just wanted to re-record it. I don't want to put you guys through that. But, basically the point I wanted to make here is that, portals are a theoretically possible anomaly or phenomena, whatever you want to refer to it as. But the issue here is, why would Sasquatch be able to find them? Why would they use them? And even if they do find them and do use them, how do we know that they would ever be safe in doing so? They could end up way high up in Earth's atmosphere and fall down to the Earth. They could end up out in space where they would freeze to death immediately. Their blood would freeze. They would actually die from that more quickly than asphyxiation. Geez, that was tougher than I thought it would be to say. Basically, they'd have no oxygen. Their whole body would just absolutely be destroyed by that environment. They could end up on the surface of the sun. They could end up in the core of the earth, or they could end up in a much more funny situation like the inside of a shopping mall. We really don't know where these portals would end up, if they'd even form naturally, but if they do, traversing through one would be an incredibly risky endeavor. So, the whole issue with portals, that theory actually causes more questions to be raised than it answers. I found a lot of people just bring up portals as kind of a way to wave away any questions that people have in regards to Bigfoot. Where did the footprints go? Oh, well, portals. It just kind of pushes the problem away, and it stops them from having to really think hard to answer that question. And I'm not saying this to be derogatory or rude to anyone who believes in portals. I'm just saying it because it's what I've observed. It's just what I've seen. I've seen that a lot, where people just kind of come up with that as a way to defer the problem and not have to deal with it. And although I get that, I think that causes a lot of issues. For one thing, you can actually logically explain that away. And I'll do a video on that on its own, so I won't go into it here. But, you can explain why footprints suddenly stop for a number of different reasons. You can explain why the creature disappeared from view so quickly, or seemed to just disappear into thin air. Right? You can come up with explanations for that, and you don't need to use so-called woo-woo to do that. And the whole point of this channel is to come up with explanations that are grounded in logic, if at all possible. I don't discount the paranormal. I've had paranormal experiences that, frankly, I've attributed to being demonic because of the energy that was behind it. But, I'm not going to go into that unless you guys really want me to, because what can you do with it? I don't discount that people have those sightings and those experiences, but I do not believe that they have anything to do with Bigfoot. When you look at the majority of Bigfoot encounters and sightings, not only can they be explained away reasonably, but oftentimes there's no real need to explain away anything. It's a perfectly natural experience. People see a creature and it runs off, or walks off into the woods. You're looking at a creature that clacks rocks together, whaps sticks on trees, maybe does tongue clacking instead. I've seen some different theories on how they make those pow type sounds that you hear out in the woods. You're looking at something that eats, sleeps out in the woods. You're not looking at something that comes across as otherworldly or extra dimensional. You're looking at something that really does seem to be a creature. We'll go into what I believe they are in a full-blown documentary and even the book that I'm writing. But basically I think they are possibly Homo erectus, that basically evolved for the more northern climates and went over into North America for a couple possible different reasons. At the end of the day, whatever it is specifically, it's very clear to me that it is a real creature and not fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional, whatever you want to call it. And so, using the explanation of portals does the topic no good, I think, because now people are just going to go, oh, well, look at that. They don't have any answers. Yeah, sure, magic. Yeah, that's what caused it, magic. Or, you'll have the issue of people, and I think sometimes this is done on purpose, sometimes I think it's accidental, but I think people come up with some of these paranormal explanations in order to stop people from actually going out into the woods and trying to research. I've seen this weird, and I can understand it from a certain point of view, but I've seen this weird obsession with trying to get people to leave Bigfoot alone. Oh, just leave them alone, those poor creatures. No, I'm not going to leave them alone. I belong out in the woods just as much as they do, and I'm not going to be shooting them, so no. I respectfully decline the advice. Thank you, but no, I'm not going to be, firing off bombs and throwing grenades around and, trying to, harass all of the animal life and even human life out there. But at the same time, I'm going to be doing my research. Yeah, I'm not going to back off from that just because you want me to. I'm sorry, but no. I can understand why you wouldn't want to go out there and do research. I get that. But trying to stop people from researching Bigfoot comes across more like you're a liar and you don't want people to come across the truth, even though I think a lot of people genuinely don't want you to harass these creatures. That is the vibe that you give people if you're not very, very careful. And I think there are some liars and hoaxers out there, but you know what I mean. And when it comes to portals, I think a lot of these different explanations are kind of done as a, well, there's no use. They're going to hide from you no matter what you do. Don't even try. Kind of dejected point of view that can come about when you start using these paranormal explanations. Because when you think about it, yeah, that's kind of true. If they can cloak on a dime, they can disappear into portals, they can, just manipulate the entire world to no end for whatever reason, whenever they want, there's nothing you can do. But if they are a physical flesh and blood being, there's a lot you can do. And if you get to convince others that it's paranormal, then what do? They're going to leave it alone, or they're not really going to really dig in their cleats and push hard to find evidence. They're going to go, well, we'll just kind of see if we stumble upon anything. And they're not really going to actively research. And so anytime I see this paranormal stuff, I really see a lot of people falling into that belief of, well, there's nothing I can do. When yes, there's a lot you can do. And I'm in the process of scripting out and trying to film a documentary all about that. But anyway, there's a lot of questions that come with this possibility, and I just don't see it. If we can't use them, if we can't access them, why would a Bigfoot that's much less advanced than we are, be able to do that? And how could it do it safely too? Especially because a lot of people aren't just talking about a Bigfoot finding a portal. They're talking about a Bigfoot creating a portal. That makes no sense. It just doesn't. Well, they're a spiritual being. Well, so are we, but yet we're physical beings too. So this whole, well, they're spiritual, well, what are you describing here? When you really start pushing, you're describing what I would describe as a demonic being, something that's extra dimensional, that just takes on different forms, that is a trickster, that likes to harass and scare people, that will take on any form necessary to do so. And I want nothing to do with that. I've experienced that, and I think I know exactly where that comes from, and I don't want anything to do with it. And so, of course I reject that because I want nothing to do with it. That's why I have a lot of skepticism towards a lot of these, Wendigo and Dogman type reports, because they kind of go down that path as well, especially the Dogman stuff I've seen, because the Wendigo stuff is clearly messed up, but, the Dogman stuff, how these things just appear out of thin air and scare the ever-loving you-know-what out of people. I don't know. It's one of those things where I think you can pin any number of different things as an explanation to the generalized phenomenon, but no one option answers everything in every scenario and every sighting. So, of course, I don't want to just kind of throw those away either. But yeah, I don't want anything to do with the paranormal stuff. I've had enough of that, and I don't want to ever have anything more to do with it again. So when it comes to the Bigfoot stuff, if we can treat it as a flesh and blood entity and creature, and we can try to do research and we can try to reason on things, I think that's wise. I think that's for the best. Because again, you know, with something flesh and blood and physical, we can try and prove it exists. With something extra dimensional, you just can't do that. You are dealing with something so much more advanced than you. There's nothing you can do. And, you know, it's kind of pointless. And I think if we can treat Bigfoot as something that isn't pointless to try and research, that's for the better. Because you lose nothing if you get to go outside, go outdoors, enjoy nature, set up trail cameras, get to just enjoy the scenery, go camping a lot and try and find Bigfoot. But you lose everything if you just stay at home and go, oh, well, there's no point, and get all dejected about it. So I like thinking about how I could actually capture and find evidence. It makes me happy. Some people have fishing as their main hobby. Some people have hunting as their main hobby. I like fishing and hunting for different reasons. And they kind of overlap with Bigfooting in that I get to go outdoors and enjoy the quiet time. So anyway, I think this is an interesting topic. I do want to interact with some people who have the kind of experience needed in the field of well, you know, theory and being able to talk about possibilities for portals. But in the meantime, hopefully this will do, and hopefully you guys found it interesting. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any other topics that you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comment section down below, and I may very well try and cover them. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.